Quarter three of 2024 is now gone. We are moving forward into the fourth quarter. We have so much to wrap up from just that last quarter, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm Eric Sapanik, this is Steve Rand, and this is the Gold Spot. Well, Steve, it's really what we're going to try to do here is do a brief summary, because trying to talk about what happened in the last few months of quarter three, there's a lot that happened and transpired in that. So maybe you can start and refresh our memories of where this journey began.
Well, to start from the political side, obviously a lot's happened in the last few months. We saw an assassination attempt on former President Trump, which obviously stirred things up quite a bit. It's made things a lot more divided than it even was before. We've seen Joe Biden step down as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, and then Kamala Harris installed into that role without a new Democratic primary, which has a lot of people very upset and a lot of people very bewildered as far as how we got here. We've got illegal immigration just absolutely going crazy right now at the southern border. We've seen a lot of new things transpire with immigrants being brought in from other parts of the world and placed in sanctuary cities and other places around the country. And it's just really stirred things up from an emotional standpoint and from a psychological standpoint in this country and where we're going.
Yeah, Steve, it's crazy to think that all of those things transpired in just the last quarter. It seems like it was so much more time in that amount of time, especially from the assassination attempts that happened, with Joe Biden stepping down. It seems like forever ago that happened, but that really just happened last quarter.
Yeah, it was all just in the last few months, and that's just the political stuff. Then we talk about the economic side of this.
The economic side of things, well, a lot has transpired there. And let me sum up a couple of the things that I think that is more towards our listeners that are interested in the gold markets and how those gold markets reacted. Most recently, of course, is the Fed launched its first easing cycle since the pandemic by cutting basis points by 50 points. That was a really big impact. The next one is, of course, the market environment rapidly changed, triggering by softening the U.S. labor markets. That is something that the Fed reacted to. That's the reason why they were cutting those 50 basis points. The negative correlation between bonds and equities reemerged. That means recession indicators. That's definitely something that's concerning right now. And the U.S. debt, for the first time in history, hit over $1 trillion in interest alone. That's just the interest. And that brings up another point. If you really think about our debt, since the time of the actual housing crisis, after the housing crisis and after they dropped rates, we were running at a QE, the quantitative easing programs that were really running at almost 0% interest rates. So through all this period of time where we're putting debt upon debt upon debt, we were really doing that with the idea that, hey, this is all free money when it comes to the loan. We're not really paying any real interest on it. But now, with everything that's happened and now with the inflation going out of control, we had to raise those interest rates. Now, that's becoming a big economic problem on the debt side of things. And the debt side of things is the one thing that people on the political platform don't want to talk about, because we know that the only real way to start to reel that in is to cut spending. And nobody wants to cut spending. It doesn't matter if it's Republicans, it doesn't matter if it's Democrats. The one thing no one wants to do is cut spending. Where do we cut spending? How do we cut spending? But what they do know is that they want to spend. Now, how do the gold markets react to that? Well, we have a chart here for you today. And the gold prices, when we started this quarter, were right around $2,329. That's where we started. But by the time this last quarter ended, we were all the way up to about $2,634. The peak in that amount of time was $2,672. That's 13% from one tip to the other when it comes to that one quarterly change. That's a pretty big deal. Here's something that's fascinating that Steve brought up to me. When you look at how many conflicts truly are going on in the world, we hear about the Ukraine, we hear about Israel, but worldwide, there's a lot more, isn't there, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the 1 year anniversary of the attack in Israel last year just passed. It's hard to believe it's been a year already. And of course, that region is just torn up in conflict right now. And we do hear a lot about that. We hear a lot about the Ukraine conflict with Russia. But what you're not hearing about for the majority of people is there's 110 of these conflicts going around the world, armed conflicts in the Middle East and in North Africa right now. More than 45 armed conflicts are going on currently. In the rest of Africa, more than 35 armed conflicts. In Asia, 21 armed conflicts going on currently. In Europe, 7. And then in Latin America, 6 more armed conflicts are going on right now. These things are just happening all over the place, and the media just, it just doesn't tell us about the majority of it. Some of them obviously bigger than others, but this is something that we really need to understand, that conflict and uncertainty is one of those things that will eventually fuel precious metals even more than it already has today. People use it as a store of value when things are uncertain. And if there's one thing we can be certain about right now, is that things are incredibly uncertain, which is why we have said for years, don't wait to buy gold. Buy gold and wait.
Absolutely. The thing that we can say right now is even when we've had people come to us and say, hey, Steve's dealt with this. Should I sell my gold now? It's really high. I bought it really low. Maybe I should sell. You had a great question that you always ask people, and it doesn't seem like we get a heck of a lot of great answers, and maybe you do. Maybe you'd like to comment on this. We'd love to hear from you. Steve, what is that question?
Yeah, the biggest thing I'll ask people is, okay, where are you going to invest that money then? And most people are thinking that they have to take profit because things are higher. And I get that. I understand that everybody wants to make money. But if the reality is the world is in a much more turbulent place than it was when you bought this, and the world is buying gold at the fastest pace in 6 decades, there's a little bit of an indication that things are not necessarily getting better anytime soon. So if you're selling this just to turn around and put it in another market, maybe like, for instance, the stock market, which by the way is at an all-time high, or in property, which by the way is at an all-time high, there's a reason for that. Inflation is continuing to go. We're continuing to see the cost of living go up, and we're continuing to see the dollar value drop, and that's why it costs more money to buy gold, just like it costs more money to buy just about everything else you buy. So unless you need this for some type of emergency or something's come out of the blue that you have to pay for that you weren't expecting, ask yourself that question. What am I really gaining by selling this when those dollars don't go as far as they did in the past, and they're not likely to go anywhere further in the future?
Our advice on this is hold the line. Do not sell yet. There's way too much going on right now, and there is no better protectionary hedge. Physical gold and silver, that's, in our opinion, where you should be right now. With that being said, we thank you for coming along on another journey with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week right here on The Gold Spot.
If you enjoyed today's Gold Spot, like or subscribe to both our YouTube and Rumble channels. Also, comment below if you have any questions or if you'd like to hear us talk about a specific topic in a future video.